that there is a significant amount of evidence that this came from that laboratory in Wuhan.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying months ago that there was evidence the coronavirus originated in a Wuhan, China lab. Now a top Chinese virologist seems to support those claims, saying she has proof the virus was man-made, and all you have to do is look at the deadly bug's genetic info. Listen to this.
Based on the virus genome, it's basically like our fingerprint. So you can see the very unusual characters in their genome. This virus is like Frankenstein. So he created those things like basically a cow has deer's head, has rabbit's ear, and also have monkey's hand. So they can never get it from the nature.
She goes on to say that the Chinese government intentionally released the disease. Joining us now to discuss is David Dodd, the CEO and chairman of GeoVax. He's also a vaccine expert. David, thank you for being with us this morning. We just want to start first with your reaction to this doctor's claims. Do they sound accurate to you?
Well, I don't know if they're accurate. They're not new. We've been hearing such types of information in whisperings and comments for months now, going back probably to March at least. So this has been a theme that has grown. It sounds somewhat convincing, but I think time will tell. I think most of us that do what we do are focused on getting a vaccine as soon as possible that can provide single dose, strong protection that doesn't need to be refrigerated, and we can treat people around the world regardless of the origin. But it is highly concerning, yes.
Yeah, what about the specific genome that she was referring to, right? The virus's genetic code almost. Does that seem unusual based on previous viruses that we've come into contact with?
Well, everything is unusual about COVID-19 compared to what we've dealt with in the past. But I think what we're learning is that viruses are not completely understood, and they continue to evolve and they continue to mutate. This is why there's such a focus also in areas of infectious diseases that we refer to as weaponized infectious diseases or bioterrorism, things like Ebola, Marburg, Sudan, and Lassa. And we have major programs being funded by governments around the world, not just the U.S. government, because these are viruses that have 90% plus fatality rates. If someone were to weaponize one of these, and you think about the exposure we've had with COVID-19 at less than 1% of fatality rate, I mean, it would wipe the planet out. So we need to be able to develop ways to prevent and protect against such infectious pathogens.
Let's talk about that, the vaccine, of course. The president had spoken about it during the town hall event last night in Philadelphia. I want to play you what he had to say and get your response.
I don't want people to panic, and we are going to be okay. We're going to be okay, and it is going away, and it's probably going to go away now a lot faster because of the vaccine.
So the president there very confident that we will be seeing a safe and effective vaccine in the near future, potentially even by the end of this year. Are you confident that that could be the case?
I'm not as confident as he expresses his level of confidence, but I think he has a different role certainly than I have. In my consideration, there is a likelihood that there'll be a vaccine available by year end. It, however, may be and more than likely would be a vaccine that would require multiple doses, require extensive ultra refrigeration, perhaps maintaining it as much as minus 70 degrees Celsius would not necessarily be a long-term durability. So I think what we need to do, and I think this is why the federal government has just recently informed many of us that they're going to continue the funding for developments, because the goal is to achieve a single dose, highly durable, non-refrigerated vaccine that has broader coverage. My company is one of the few that is working on trying to develop a single-dose universal coronavirus vaccine, one that would be able to protect not only with what we're dealing with today, but also potential mutations and further coronavirus types of threats.
Yeah, and that would sound like a great solution, right? You show up the one time, you get the vaccine, you're good to go. But realistically, how long does that take?
I think it would add a year more to the process with appropriate funding. Everything can be sped up. If we had the funding that others have received at this point, we would already know that if we have the potential for a single-dose universal coronavirus vaccine. I know that decisions had to be made. We continue to be encouraged and supported by members of the federal government and are proceeding and accelerating and soon to accelerate at an even faster pace. So our goal is to, as quickly as possible, move into human testing, perhaps in early next year rather than later in next year, and be able to do that because the goal is to be able to provide something that is not only works, but is practical. And practicality means that people can receive it no matter where they live in the world, and we don't have to go through multiple dosing and this ultra refrigeration.
Yeah, well, let's talk about another vaccine company that we are also seeing on the playing field here, Pfizer, where its CEO this week said that the drug maker will know relatively soon whether the vaccine they're working on is effective. Listen to this.
In our base case, we have quite a good chance, more than 60%, that we will know if the product works or not by the end of October. But of course, doesn't mean that it works. It means that we will know if it works.
Again, end of October for that organization there. Does that sound like a possibility?
I think there will be measures of efficacy that they will be able to report by the end of October. So I think that is possible. Whether or not it is definitive efficacy, I think is questionable. But keep in mind that the Pfizer vaccine is one that will require multiple doses. It requires ultra refrigeration, which means the practicality of it from a sort of global types of distribution is probably not there. But again, it's a major step forward. And I think the fact that Pfizer has funded this entirely on their own and not accepted federal funding or taxpayer funding is laudable, to say the least. So I'm a strong believer and have great regard and respect for what Pfizer is doing, but I don't believe that the vaccine that they'll end up with will be the one that we'll want to see widespread distribution.
It is interesting to see these private companies stepping up at this time.